I wanted to thank you for like bringing up more of a hopeful like comment, because actually after she says in the book, like I will get better and I'm glad my mom died. Uh, she went and got dialectical behavioral therapy, which is
Oh.
actually like a very successful form of treatment for eating disorders. So I just wanted to mention that. I would highly advise like anybody to go out and you know, who's looking for recovery, who's looking for ways to get better and not such a controlling environment, to search that out, because I have, and like it's very helpful. It's very introspective, um, and it really puts like the work into practice,
Okay.
to getting better. So
Yeah.
that's one thing I wanted
Thank
to
you.
mention. And then Kat, I wanted to kind of know how like you are an actor and you
Yes.
are a recent graduate from New World, and you wrote and directed and performed in your one-person show. And I wanted to kind of know how that helped you with Esther, or
Yes.
maybe how that informed you getting into the role at
Yes.
all. And that's theater, so
Yeah.
that's like the transition from theater to film too. So I
Yeah.
was just curious.
Wow.
Loaded
Well,
That's a
question.
loaded question.
I know.
well, I wrote a one-person show called Broken Pieces. And earlier I mentioned how this story of I Dreamt of This Esther felt like such a real personal story. And this one-person show was also a personal story. It was a real story about a woman sculptor named Camille Claudel. And she had a very tough life because she wanted to be a sculptor, but her work was never appreciated because it was always a man that was in charge. And she worked for Rodin, who was her boss basically, but also her lover. So she got lost in that. And then over the years, she struggled with alcoholism and paranoia. So the moment I heard about Camille's story, I knew that I had to tell it myself because I saw so much of myself in Camille. The way that she does her work of art as an actor, I aspire to do the same kind of work of art. I think of acting as being a sculptor half the time. So my connection with her was a very big one. It lasted for 3 to 4 years, and I felt like I had to write about her. And there are a lot of similarities between her and Esther because Camille in the story, the only thing she has control over are her sculptures and protecting them. And from the moment that there is an invasion in her space and she feels like someone is coming after them, she destroys all of them and she buries them. And till this day, some people can't find those sculptures. They were lost in time because she lost her mind completely and wanting to just keep control over her work of art because she felt like Rodin was going to take over that too once she fully lost her mind. And then she was sent to a mental institution by her brother. And then her brother never let her out. There was a point where she did get better, and her mother and her brother didn't want to deal with having her be home. So they never let her out, and she died in a prison, essentially. She was in a mental institution, but it was a prison. There's a photograph of Camille where she's looking straight into the camera and she's an old woman, and I always look at that photo and I see nothing in her eyes. And that's why I wrote about her. And just like Esther feels like she has control over the food and the purging, so there were many similarities between Camille and Esther, and I feel like playing the role of Camille really helped me understand the need of control for Esther as well. So yeah.
I mean, I watched your performance and it was such there was so much raw emotion there. And I it was a different kind of raw emotion that I saw you bring to Esther, but how was it kind of getting into both of those, like,
Oh,
you know,
oh my God.
heavy states?
It was all in the writing for both of them. I feel like the writing that I did for my one person show really put me into the mindset of Camille. And by the time that we filmed it and I performed that one person show, I really felt as if her spirit was in that room. And there were many rehearsals I had where I would say certain words, say certain things, and I could have sworn that I saw someone like in the door. Like it just felt like it was illuminating something. One of the first rehearsals I had, there was a candle right in the center of the stage, and it belonged to nobody. And that's a candle that I ended up using for the show. So getting into it emotionally was really rough at first. And then I feel like the more challenging aspect of this, of doing a one person show and doing a film like this, is the process of getting out of a character.
Mhm.
I feel like as actors, we don't talk about that enough. And as artists, we don't talk about that enough. What happens after the work is done? How do you get out of it? It took me forever to let go of this woman, and it took me forever to let go of Esther. It was such a process because it's such heavy work,
Mhm.
and it brings out so many different emotions, and you have to go through the inner depths of your shadow, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was tough. It wasn't easy getting out of that process, you
Yeah.
know?
Also, like, this reminds me, the other day we were talking about boundaries as an actor and how you need to kind of stand up for yourself and
Mm-hmm.
say, like, I will do this, I won't do this, and to
Yeah.
protect yourself. What was that like with Esther
Yeah.
and working with me? I had my
Right.
own experience.
So the great thing about this film and working with you and Kevin on it was you guys were very respectful about the kind of work we were going to do, and very respectful of people's boundaries. I knew that this was going to be a heavy content that we were going to film. And I remember we all had conversations over and over. Is this okay? Is this okay? Are you sure this is okay? Um, and for the most part, most things were okay.
Mhm.
But, there were very challenging scenes in the film that sometimes as an actor, you become very vulnerable to that. And at that point, when you feel like you're becoming very vulnerable to it, it's a beautiful thing, but you also can't get too lost in it.
Yeah.
So I felt that there were certain moments where I was getting a little lost in the filming, and I really needed to draw back and become logical again. And that's why I felt the need to speak my boundaries about what I was okay with and what I wasn't okay with. Um, and I'm just so happy that you guys understand that that is so important
Mhm.
to, as a director and a DP and the crew, like it's so important to speak about your boundaries. If you are not comfortable with something, even if if the directors or you get fired, they don't agree, it wasn't worth it then.
Mhm.
Because you should feel like you can talk to people. It has to be a safe space.
Yeah.
If it's not a safe space, you can't create the kind of work you want to create. So kudos to you guys for being so understanding of boundaries.
No, I mean, it has to be a collaboration.
Yeah.
I felt like I've said this before, but I felt like I built Esther with you.
Yeah.
And so it was very important for me to know. I'd never really like directed like outside of much smaller things,
Mhm.
and I've never really had like a relationship with
Yeah.
the actor, and especially like building the character like this from start to finish. And it was very important to me to
Yeah.
know what you feel comfortable doing as this
Yeah.
character, what you think this character would do like in this scene. Like, if you don't feel comfortable, we cut out a whole big chunk of a scene.
We cut out a specific scene that I remember telling you. I remember crying to you because I felt so bad because, it's a very important story to you. And I really wanted to do you justice and kind of pulling through. But there comes a moment where, you kind of just feel defeated and you're like, I just can't go through with that. I can't go on with that. And that's why I'm so happy that we spoke about it.
Not defeated though.
Yeah, it wasn't feeling defeated. It was more so like trying to power through, but it's like, why do I have to power through when I can just have a conversation?
Yeah. And like I thought that was so much more special, the way that we told that scene, because the scene prior like was so intense. I watching you go through it, like I could feel it, and I wasn't expecting that scene to be the intense scene. I thought the next one was going to be the intense scene.
It was like a storm.
And so it was very special to me that we found that together.
I want to say something, like when you write the script, you have this idea, but then when you're actually, I think I know what scenes that you guys are talking about, and I wasn't necessarily there for them, but I know that we talked about it. When you are there and in the scene and in the moment, something completely different kind of happens. The same, what you want, but something different that can make it okay, because now you're telling the story, and make it okay to be able to take out this other part that you had there. Because when you write it, you also have to give, I'm sure as a director and a DP, you give yourself like that permission to have, a change here or there that makes sense to the story. What's happening and to the story. I felt that in our last scene in the shed, I think that was a very it was a hard day, but it was
very intimate scene.
But with the hard day, that I think every time that we rolled and when we got to it, it kind of grew. And it might not have been necessarily what was originally the idea, but I think it tied a bow,
a little bow.
I don't know. It kind of
came together.
It came together.
Yeah.
Everything throughout the whole process of just coming up with the story, writing the story, pre-production, filming it, post, in editing, the story is evolving the whole time. And so when that happens on set, and when I see you guys developing your own way of telling the scene, telling the story on set, I'm like, yes, this is what it was supposed to be, letting things happen the way that they should happen organically. So
there were
it was
so many
really
scenes
cool
that were
seeing
improvised, that weren't part of the script, that became such a moment of catharsis for all of us, I think.
And just letting the scenes you guys would finish a scene, and I would this is something that Kevin taught me. He was like, let the scenes breathe. Don't call cut right away. Let it happen. So as soon as the scene ended,
I was having a problem with that in one scene in particular. I was gonna die. I was dead, and I was gonna die.
You came back to life.
I had to come back to life.
I was watching the footage the other day, and she's like, and
I was like, I need to breathe.
That's so funny.
Yeah. Just those special moments, really.
So wholesome.
Yes. Kevin. So I have said this to you, in a lot of ways. It feels like this film, half of it is you. Along the way, we worked so closely together, and you were so involved in the building of the story, and the writing process, and also supporting me throughout the whole time. And I kind of wanted to know what your experience was, or what your thoughts are on our dynamic as director and DP, but also as partners in real life.
So where do I begin?
You've been put in a spot.
Yes. So I suppose like working, I guess, with like your partner is not always like easy, or at least from what I've seen, like it doesn't always work, but we've managed to make it work. I think we have certain like tendencies or like visions or uh, desirables in like the art that we're outputting, certain like standards and things, and a lot of it matches and coincides, and um, like the significance of each moment that we seek, like I don't know, we're kind of always like just we're seeing the same thing. So it was never really a difficult, like too difficult of a journey. I think we fed off each other like
That's
a
what it
lot.
seemed like from the outside, I want to say.
Yeah, we like I fed off seeing you want something, um, and whatever I was doing was trying to amount to making sure that you're getting your vision, um, and that I understand it. Um, and it seemed like I was, because the feedback that I was getting was like, you're understanding. But I thoroughly like enjoyed the process. I was taken back that we were able to work so well together and like feed off each other like successfully. And um like it was sometimes like the days became like blurs, because it's just like we wake up, we're going to sleep, and throughout the time we're just like working on the project together, or we're talking to each other about the project, or dealing with our own lives, our own experiences, if there are certain things that may also actually like deal with what this film is trying to talk about. Um, so the lines of a lot became blurred, but like walking along the journey like with you was fun. It was cool. I'm astounded by like your dexterity to like keep going at certain things, and I believe in you and your vision, and you believe in mine. So we were just constantly like fueling each other. At least that's the way like I saw it. But yeah.
I want to cry now.
I know.
I mean, that's
It's nice. I've worked in several. Well, I've worked in a lot of short films, and it's always nice when you know that there's a communication and
Yeah.
and between the director, the DP, and you
And
have the
it's
same
natural.
vision, and it's kind of
Yeah.
like you're working together and solving a problem. And I saw a lot of that. Like I've also been on a set that there's like bickering or whatever, and as an and having this be good and be together and engaged also, I think, leaves the actors kind of like, okay, now we worry about our scenes. We don't worry like if actors are very like, oh, everything's about me, and if there's bickering, they're like, oh, they might be saying that, or they don't like what they no I mean
Yeah. It doesn't create like a chaotic environment. It kind of helps the space to feel safe, and we can do what our
we're gonna
job.
do, because we feel supported by what
'Cause
you
we
guys are doing, and you
exactly.
guys have that one vision and are working together.
Exactly. You guys know
So-
your vision, so we know what we're doing, Yeah.
So it was evident to us that you guys work well together
That's
and
cool.
had like the same vision.
Yeah.
And the whole crew, like when there's a good like lead, it spreads to everybody, and there and every things happen because they happen. But if there's a good team, we're gonna be able to overcome anything. And I think I talked about that in the other part in the other vignette that we did the other day. Things got tough on some days,
We
but
had many
everybody pulled together, and that's because you guys were together, pulled like.
I hope so.
Yeah, and I think you're talking about day 5, which
The last day for
The
us.
last day.
it was like we just got a hurricane or a monsoon dumped on us.
Mother
Truly,
Nature was
Um,
doing her
from-
magic.
We pulled up.
we pulled up to set. It was storming.
The
and
muddy floor.
the floor was muddy by the time we got like onto
I was
set.
sinking on that ground.
And we were shooting interiors, but the way that we had to shoot that was like everything set up exterior. So we had to build the tent. We had to build the tent in the rain, and also build tents to hold the gear that we're going to be using close by, and then also like the people, keep them safe, and the food, and bouncing back to like what you were saying, like the crew, like yes, it does begin with like a lead, and like a, the leader should have some kind of calmness and resilience to the things that come through. But
I did not have that.
No, but
but
you might have not had it internally, but you had it, and you gave that off. So then, that's how everybody was doing their thing, because they were all pulling for your project. They were doing long hours, and they were doing everything that they were doing in
yeah,
the conditions that they were doing them. Um,
and I mean, like I spoke to some of them, or like there's a couple group like sessions, and I was like, listen, if there's anybody who feels like the desire to go home, like we understand. Like if you have any fear of being sick or whatever it is, or like dealing with any of this madness, like go for it. Like there's no hard feelings. But like everybody stayed. Everyone's like, no, I want to finish this off. This is the last day. We're gonna make sure we get your thing done.
I mean, as soon as we pulled up on set, everyone, as I'm having like a little breakdown, everyone was already just like hauling shit and working and moving, and like I had never seen anything like that before. And
the commitment,
it brought me to tears at the end of the day. I just like exploded. I couldn't believe like that everyone would work so hard on something like this, and put so much of their time and their energy. And I value, I think this is where you were kind of going, like maybe whatever it starts from me, I don't know about that, but like I think it's the crew, like their talent, their art, their craft is what's so inspiring to me, and that's what made me pull myself out of like whatever breakdown I was having about the chaos of the day, that nothing was going right. It was raining. We're not going to get this shot. We're not going to get this scene. But like, I saw what everybody was doing and all the work that everyone was putting in, and it made me want to finish and feel like I could finish. So I was very grateful to have that support system. Yeah.
and you were the guiding force. You were the main guiding force of this project. I feel like none of us would have been able to do any of this without you. So you need to give yourself more credit in that aspect.
That's very kind. Thank you.
Well, what you were saying is that you were the guiding force. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And having that funk, it's okay.
Yeah.
But staying calm, and then and we kept on going, and you're allowed to have those, and that's okay. But everything kind of worked. And what you said about like at the end, like you're just saying, when at the end of the day I just kind of broke down.
Yeah.
That's like similar to like when you finish your character, and like you finish, and also like trying to get out of your character. Well, you needed to get out of your
of that story.
Directorial character of like accepting everything that happened.
Because you didn't just direct this, you wrote this. So you had like such a deep connection to this. You know?
I mean,
had to feel your feelings.
It was like months of just everything built up, and then in one moment, like I was just like doing like a dummy check in the backyard, and I just started bawling. Like I just like ugly crying. But
I did that for my film too. On the last day, we were in some place in downtown, and everybody was like unloading shit. I found like a little corner, and I just let it go, because that was also a personal thing too, and to be able to
it's good to purge that way. That
yeah.
You have to.
You have to feel it, like you said. You have to validate your feelings that you're going through it.
And there's my little transition. So you are mentioning your film Soft Driven Mad. Did you feel like there was any connection thematically between the two films?
Yes. So I see a lot of like, or there's certain similarities in terms of like the feeling. And there's these characters who, you were mentioning it to Demos when you were telling him like about the theme, but my themes had to deal with control too, and coming to terms with some type of acceptance over some event that happened that made them the way that they are. And at the end, it's like she doesn't really like win. I mean, like, in I think one of your intentions, like you wanted the ending for Esther to be kind of morally ambiguous or something like that, where you don't know really who's kind of like right or wrong, or if this person's winning in their goals, or if they've really just lost or something like that. That ambiguity is something that I had in Soft Dreamt too. At the end, the character seems happy, but is it real?
Yeah.
But yes, like the themes of control and losing control or having somebody else control you, that was definitely like a major like consistency and something that I understand. And I understand, or like in Soft Dreamt, there were some elements of like prescription medicine or like drug abuse. But it's not like very lavishly talked about, or I mean, we only see like the pills once. We don't even know if she takes it or not. But there's some motives there from like my own experiences with like drugs or addictions, and that's something that I, like with relating to the eating disorder, maybe I don't like know this journey as like intimately as other people, but when I see it and I hear certain things about it, I can relate it to like addictions, and it's the closest thing that I think could really be that, something that just really it's coming from within and it's scratching your walls and it's like asking for something that's not good, and sometimes you just give in, or a lot of times depending on where you're at, like you give in. So that struggle is something that I think there's a lot of people who deal with all certain kinds or all different kind of struggles, but the idea of facing your struggle is something that we all deal with. It's whichever kind of means it is to whatever end, like we all got to struggle. And I saw Esther struggle and it moved me. For personal notes, on notes in terms of like story and like what you're trying to say with it, like there was a lot that I was intrigued about. So I was definitely like interested and I wanted to do it. I don't know if I answered your question.
He did. So beyond that, what was this experience like DPing as opposed to your other experiences DPing?
Scale. All the prior projects that I've DP'd have been like maximum 10 people. And this we had 3 times 10 people. I mean, we were like switching out crew members during the days, but we had a lot of people on set. And I'm just thinking about all the people that I would see like in the shots. Like I'm rolling and I just see like a bunch of people. I'm like, wow, that's uncomfortable. But and I mean, I have more of like a connection to this script versus like the other scripts that I've DP'd. The length of it, the amount of time that we had to work on it, the relationship with like you as the director. It's been like entirely different from all the previous DP experiences. In terms of like maybe, I mean, this isn't like exactly your question, but in terms of like the differences from like directing, I mean, as a director, or at least as me as a director, I'm kind of serving my story, but I'm also serving myself. Whereas like me as the DP, I'm serving you. And I may have like whatever motives or whatever I want, but if it doesn't align with what you want, then I need to readjust. And I think for me, in a way, that's quite liberating. Because I like to really wrangle like with the story and have my own things that I put into it and layer it as much as possible, or do whatever I'm doing and like direct it. But I also like to just be like with the camera and create the visuals and like be like of a service to somebody, and help somebody to like get what they want. I find a lot of fulfillment in that, so I enjoyed this like differently than I would like just like directing. But directing my last thing gave me a lot of like, I guess, knowledge and insight about how to manage with a crew like of this level and this caliber, and how to be efficient with that and communicate and work a team.
How was that experience like, specifically working with your crew, with like lighting and camera department, overseeing such a big group of people?
Well, sometimes it could be a little bit like scary, but like I had a lot of trust in my crew. I knew who's on our crew. We were pretty stacked on like G&E and camera. So a lot of my fears were kind of not necessarily like there about like, are we going to be able to get it done? Every one of those G&E people, they're also DPs, which in one way that's like that was something that was kind of daunting. It's like, all right, this is my first time DPing since way back, and I'm gonna be DPing a set where there's a bunch of DPs on there. Are they gonna be judging this, that, whatever? It didn't really feel like that at all. They were all very supportive, and very collaborative, and so like I had maybe some fear, but at the same time, like you never know what it's gonna be like until you're on the set. And we had our plans. We had our plan A's, our plan B's, and then our moments of like, if shit hits the fan, or okay, we got to improvise. There has to be, some always, you always have to have the readiness or be ready for any moment, like to improvise or to completely change like what's been planned. Like we didn't plan for day 5 the way that it was, but we ended up pulling everything together to make it work. So I think that speaks, on the level of like the aptitude of the crew and not only the crew, but like you, and then also you guys for sticking around and hanging out with us and shooting something that's, so personal and like deep to somebody.
Well, I want to thank you for, building all of this with me. You were kind of my guidepost throughout all of this. Anytime that I was having a very hard time on set, or just, if we're filming something like the main bathroom scene where I just was crying and like hiding in a room, trying to work up the courage to actually direct that. And you were right there just every step of the way, helping me and talking me through it and supporting me. So thank you for that.
Thank you for choosing me.
I also think that Florencia and I saw your connection with the camera. The way you I felt like I was another scene partner, the camera. And you really helped me feel that connection with it. Like I felt like, if I'm talking to someone, at least Kevin is behind the camera and he is getting all of this, this story.
Yeah.
And it was beautiful to experience that with you.
It was beautiful to experience it with you guys.
I agree. Yeah. Absolutely.
I will say, like, we went in with plans for like, static shots and like all these different things, and what the most powerful stuff is those moments where you just like snatch the camera off the tripod and like we're just moving with them.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
No, but out of what you're saying, I think that a flexibility and improvisation that happened on set, with the DPing and with choices that had to be, taken out or put in
Yeah.
or
differently.
readjusted. Um, they happen
For a reason,
organically,
yeah.
and sometimes it just makes it better,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
that moment
I
that
think it's
wasn't
an
even planned. Ended up in many sets, the camera keeps on rolling, and many times those shots are those shots where were not planned.
Yeah.
Those were the most intense and most intimate moments in this film, I think.
Yeah.
When we kept rolling and there was just silence and it was just two human beings experiencing each other, which is what I experienced with Florencia in our work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do want to say that there was a lot of smoke.
Yeah.
I know.
Yes.
Oh my God. And
that
by
last
the
scene.
end, the last, one of the last scenes, your voice was like so hoarse that
We were
it just made the scene
were-
it's so good.
We were both
But
like, woo.
I sympathize.
The cigarette is kind of getting to me right now.
There would be moments where we would have a break and everyone would be like, open the windows.
Oh my
gosh.
Wait, no, we can't
Some
film
people
anymore.
almost died on
We
set.
can't
Yeah.
breathe.
With a spray.
I
Ozium.
forgot who that was. Yeah. Someone was just spraying.
I
Yeah.
almost started smoking again. I even thought about buying cigarettes, but then I'm like, nah.
Thank God
I
you
had
didn't.
Yeah. Well,
So,
I would like to know what each of you wants people to take from this, or what you think of how the film ends, and what do you want audiences to kind of take with them
Mm-hmm.
based on that.
Um.
I mean, because you mentioned that the ending, my intention for it is for it to be kind of ambiguous. And maybe not ambiguous, but I don't want to tell anybody how to feel about what they just felt and experienced.
I
I feel the same way.
I think that for me, it's conversation,
Mhm.
and I mean, very ambiguous. But I just want to open conversation and have people like, wow, it seems like, from my perspective, that it's beautiful cinematography. There's going to be a lot of poetic moments, and the film does kind of teeter from genre, from being a little bit kind of horror to drama to maybe even a comedic tones here and there. But really, what I say it whenever I've been talking about it is to start a conversation about the topic.
Yeah.
I didn't even say what the topic was, but
I
start the
just
conversation.
the topic.
The topic.
Yeah, the topic of eating disorders, I'm right behind her too. I hope that, I can't control how an audience will feel about it. People can hate it, people can love it. People will have their own perspective about how this was done. But I just hope that it speaks to the people that don't have a voice, and I hope that it sparks conversation. And I really do feel like all of us human beings, we have fear, and we are scared of so many things. But I feel like once you face whatever that fear is, you could really find the light. So yeah, just keep searching for the light, and don't get lost. Essentially.
Yeah. And you?
Yes, I would also love for them to, or this to open up conversation about certain things regarding eating disorder and maybe certain relationships or the usage of certain drugs, but there can be so many possibilities of how they might feel, but if you can get them to feel or be moved some way inside, for me that's okay, I'm satisfied with my job because they were impacted
In some way.
Yeah, it could be a little bit, it could be a lot, it could be enough for them to walk out of there and forget, or enough for them to walk out and not like get it
Not
off their
forget.
mind. But if you move them in the slightest bit, like I'm content. Um, because I mean, like that's just one person. Someone is guaranteed to talk about it, and someone's gonna have that conversation. And the people that relate to this film, they're gonna be, moved by something that they can relate to, and like how we were saying, the idea that we know that there's others, like you're not alone, and that there's a comforting feeling with knowing that you're not alone, even if you're in this giant room by yourself, but there's others like you. You're not really alone. It's more of like a relative type basis, but if you knew that there was no one like you, no one suffering through something that's measured in some level of relativeness that's like that, then I don't know, that could be kind of scary. So I hope that you reach the people that need to kind of like hear this at whatever time that they hear it, and they act with it positively.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, in terms of the ending, I guess it kind of encompasses what I want people to feel about the film, which is, we don't really know, like, I'm not going to tell anybody that Esther, like, what she's doing is right or wrong. What she's experiencing is good or bad. If she's a good person, if she's a bad person, if Helen's a good person or a bad person. I just hope that people can kind of see themselves in both of their experiences, in Helen and Esther, if they can kind of feel the experience of
Both of them.
Yeah, I mean, they both struggle with eating disorders. They're both scarred individuals, and have, trauma, and it just continues to be passed on. And I think we all kind of relate to that, especially, the relationship between mother and daughter, and passing those feelings on. And
Which are very much relationships that were probably Helen and her mother, and so it's
It's a generational thing.
It keeps going.
Can I ask you something?
Yeah.
What, so would you have done anything like differently, or would you have liked to avoid something that you didn't get to, or?
I mean,
I'm sure there's things that you would have done differently, because I think everybody would, we think of that, but
I feel like, along the way, I there are things that I'm like, man, I wish I would have spent more time doing this, or I wish I would have, prepped myself a little bit better that day, or whatever. But I'm not thinking of them in the past of like, I would do that differently. It's more like, okay, for the next time, I've learned so much on this film. This film changed my entire life and perspective on things, perspective on myself, and, how I relate to others, how I work with others, meeting you guys and working with you guys and having that relationship has been so special. But yeah, and beyond all of that, I really just want to make people feel seen and give art to a space where I felt there was lacking. Because there's things like Thin, that documentary where, I mean, it's 1 in 1,000, but it shows sort of the harsher realities of eating disorders. But like, I've never seen anything really explore the topic like in an artistic way, or with any kind of nuance or anything. Like she's not just going through eating disorders. Like there's a relationship with her mother and herself, and control, and like pills. Self-medicating, and there's a lot going on. And I just hope to give the people who have experienced anything like that, or who have seen those things happen and not been able to understand them, more of an understanding and empathy. So yeah, empathy. But okay, so thank you guys for
Thank
being here
you.
today.
Thank you.
I want to thank Kat, Florencia, and Kevin for being here.
Thank you guys.
Thank you, guys.
For all
Thank
of
you,
our
guys.
crew for helping out today, and
Thank
for
you guys.
the
Thank you, crew.
entire massive crew that helped with the film in general. I am very grateful to every single one of you for lending your time and energy and talents to this crazy project.
Yeah. Agreed.
I second that.
So yes. Thank you guys all for watching and listening, and I hope you enjoy the film when it comes out.
All right.
Thank
Bye.
you. Yay.
We look at center cam and we wave.
We're all doing the queens.
To the queen.
Let's make a GIF.
Yeah. Oh my god. Yes, that would be great. A little gif.